I'm really, really excited, Eva, that you've made the time to join us in this conversation. This whole premise of the Femme Futurist Society was designed for exactly this. You meet an interesting person online, you get a chance to be a little bit exposed to their work, and you're so curious to learn more. So thank you for jumping in and having this conversation with me today.
Thank you for having me and thank you for inviting me.
So I am in California today. You are in Sweden. As we jump to this across
Yes.
timelines, which is an interesting thing, we start to talk about what it means to be in the space of liminality and quantum leadership. So again, just for background, we connected online through a series of posts, and I had a chance to dig into your work. And there's so much similarity in the way that we describe things and the way that we look at things. But there is a real practice around what it is that you've done, that you've spent a lot of time researching and applying. So the way that you describe yourself, right, is quantum leadership and quantum management coach, practitioner, and researcher focused on liminality. Is that right?
Yes.
So when you're sitting on a plane next to someone and they say, "What do you do?" How do you start?
Oh, I said, like, do you have how much time do you have? It depends on the flight. If it's like, 1 hour flight or it's like all the way to California, because I can talk about it a lot. It's, yeah, my work is very much my passion, and I'm sure that you can relate because it's not just like something that I do, it's something that I very much feel that I am, and I cannot imagine like not doing it because it would be like I would have to become somebody else. So this is how closely entangled I am with everything that I do. Um, yes, I am very much entrepreneur. I am from the beginning like crisis communication strategist.
Right.
But for the past 15 years, I have built and developed a few companies that I built on quantum management and quantum leadership model. Since I started studying like very early, like 15, 17 years ago
Wow.
already, I started to explore spirituality of business. Actually, this is how it all started, and
Oh, that's
how we
interesting.
engage. Yes, and how we engage our spiritual intelligence, which is like the superior intelligence, like like integrating our linear and um, associative thinking, how we engage this in our business roles. So my ambition was to create um, spiritually intelligent organizations, which and since spirituality and quantum are so yeah, closely related,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So
It's very much, yeah, it's about our essence, right? It's about our frequency, it's about our uniqueness, it's about how we ascribe meaning to things, right? The spiritual intelligence is everything about like our quantumness, I would say.
can I
So
interrupt for one thing?
from
Is there a difference in your mind
yes.
between a spiritual intelligence and an energetic awareness, or an energetic, I don't know if intelligence is even the right word, but and to your point, essence? Because
uh,
do you, am I parsing something too finely, or are those in the same
No, I
basket?
very much like that if you look really closely. I mean, if we're energetically aware, we are very much aware of us being a part of something bigger, right? Us participating in creation of like unfolding and an unfolding of like two orders and of something big in creation, and we see just to see how we take responsibility, right? If we are energetically aware, we take responsibility for our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, because we know that they ripple in time and space. And it doesn't get more spiritual than that,
Got it.
I believe,
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like really feeling for the system and for systems of systems, because knowing that we are always part of a bigger system and the system is always part of the bigger system, and everything we do actually affects and impacts like all the systems that we are part of because it's so holistic, right?
All right.
so
So
so it very much so yeah, it very much corresponds.
yeah.
So this is what I've been doing very much. I've been at least this is what have been my intentions. I was like studying business, spirituality of business and spiritual intelligence in business, and then quantum leadership, which very much comes from the same teacher, because it was Professor Dana Zohar that actually founded, like, she invented like spiritual intelligence, and then later quantum leadership and the quantum management theory.
Yeah, I don't know
So
if she
it was very
invented
consistent
spiritual
path.
leadership,
No, but
but
no,
the
no, no. But
idea of,
like she coined, she
yeah.
introduced the term for the first time. Actually, she did,
Uh,
and she wrote a book, SQ, calling it, and
oh, I didn't realize that.
identified like 12 criterias for spiritual intelligent individuals and spiritual intelligent organizations.
Interesting. I met a woman many years ago
But
who was a corporate shaman, and did this
uh,
work probably in the same arena, but from a different angle. And so it's been interesting to watch the paradigms across these things that felt like they were very, very separate become more and more and more closely entangled or aligned together. Or
yes,
maybe, again, it's just an awareness, right, that these things do exist together. So
exactly.
I'm curious again, your path, just backing up for 1 second before we dive into the complexity of systems inside systems inside systems. But you were in communications, you were in PR, certainly in crisis communications. There's a lot of things that happen very much in real time, right? A very emergent way of being able to now help folks navigate. What that drew you into this work? Like, was it just that as you were exposed to it, became more and more resonant, or was there something that you were seeking to to understand or a gap to fill?
Yeah, that was very much my feeling that the crisis communication plans and the strategy that we were providing, like our clients with as a PR people, they were not sufficient. There was the whole dimension that, in my eyes, was missing, and it was the very much, not only what to say and how to say, but also like the intention why we say it, and what do we really mean, and who is behind the crisis management. Because it's like I said, we could have like we could have given the same instruction to multiple leaders and the same handbooks and the same trainings, but what they did with it and how they actually translated it into, like, efficient crisis management very much depended on who they were as
Right.
leaders
Oh
and
my God.
as
Yeah, that's so
people.
true.
So I figured that there was the very essence of them as people, as leaders,
Right. Yes, yes,
that
yes, yes. And I
that
feel
was the
this.
final, like, determined, like, link that really, like, very much decided about the outcome of the, because in PR you say, like, never waste a good
Right. I
crisis.
know. Yes, exactly.
And yeah, and those who really managed to ride through the storm with the integrity intact, and actually with the values and with the purpose, serving the purpose and taking care of the people, and standing steady and truthful to both the brand and who they were as people, they actually made their organizations, like, more resilient and almost like anti-fragile, like
Right.
they became stronger
But
after
then to your
that.
point, it's not a playbook, right? It is really a deeply,
Mm.
I don't know, I wouldn't say embedded practice, but it is a way of being that aligns all that.
Exactly.
And when you look at right now AI leadership, right, companies that are being led by these
Mm.
big personalities that are out there talking about all this capability that will exist in this extraordinary future that we're heading into, I feel like the same thing applies.
Mm.
I was listening to a lot of
Yes.
podcasts over the weekend talking about different products and different launches from ChatGPT 5 to ways of being able to protect content creators, et cetera. And the way that these people showed up in the conversation really was really interesting to see whether or not you feel like you trust them or you feel like they're building something that
Yes.
can hold you well. So I think that this is why the work that you're doing is not just about helping people navigate, unknown situations, but it's really about being able to walk into a
Mm.
future in which we're building something that is so complex and so touches so much of us and so many dimensions of our lives, to be able to be aware of this aspect
Mm.
of who they are and how they
Exactly.
show up more consciously, I think is really, really profound.
Because there is no playbook
For
for quantum
sure.
leadership.
No.
There is no playbook. It's like what we do with it. Like, for me, it's mostly inspiration as a beautiful metaphor, like how we can view on things, as opposite to, like, the Newtonian paradigm. Like,
Right.
like this is like just a suggestion. Like, you can choose. You can either view on things as like nothing is exceptional and a miracle, almost like Einstein says, or you can view things and look at things like everything is absolutely extraordinary and almost a potential of a like miracle.
Love
So
it.
so I prefer to
Yeah.
so
Oh my
I
God, for sure.
prefer
So step
to be there.
should we step back for a moment and describe liminality? So the work, sort of became
Yeah.
recognizing that there was an energetic way in which people navigated this more
Mm.
successfully or not, which led you then to this question around liminality. I think that's a word that I've used a lot. Like I love this idea of the conversation around the liminal gap or liminal space or liminal intelligence.
Yes.
Um, how do you describe liminality for those who may be less familiar with that term?
As a missing link in the conversation today, mostly because this, like for me, this word is so essential. It's so vital as it's so essential, and I cannot understand still why we cannot why we don't use it more often, spread awareness more often, discuss it more often, and actually um, yeah, integrate it
Well,
in
I think be aware of it. I think,
everything in
yeah.
in every transmission site, like, but it starts with awareness, right? But maybe because it's like I said, the very word and the very definition of liminality, it comes from anthropology, as we know, right? And it comes from sociology, and it very much describes the three phases of each significant change and yeah, in most of the people's lives, that is like always about like preliminal, liminal, and post-liminal.
Interesting.
When we yeah, when we go through change, we separate from our past. We go through some kind of like separation, detachment, departure, and then we are in between for a while in the um, liminal space and on the threshold of the unknown. And then after a while, when we like become more familiar with the unknown, we reintegrate with the society. So before it was very much studied out of like rites of passages, like for example, like all the big rituals that were in, like for example, about like getting married or becoming a parent or experience like losing context that was like very familiar, like for example, death of a loved one, or yeah, divorce, or moving out from home, or becoming empty nesters, like all those significant changes that everybody goes through in their life. Like yeah, they all had the same structure, very much between identities and between stories and between selves and between different states, like of mind and emotional and our spirit. So this is how liminality has been very much defined
So it's more
in
simply, I
the
mean, the way
yeah, it's a space
right, it's a
between.
space
It's a
between,
space
right?
between. It's a space it's a like it's when we find ourselves in transition between like an old order, a life as we know
Exactly.
it, and on the threshold, like
I love the word threshold because I
before
always think
we
about the space
arrive.
between what we know and what we don't
Yes.
know, right? What's familiar and what's
Yeah.
unfamiliar. But when you put the word threshold on it, it has such an invitation to the thing that's happening next,
Yeah.
which I think is so beautiful. And I think that we have now come to embrace it more, or sort of look at it as a concept more distinctly, because it's not just about the big, huge life changes that are happening. We keep talking about
Mm.
transformation inside every organization, right? I'll be having a call tomorrow with a woman who's leading transformation inside her organization. Like over and over again,
Mm.
we are inviting people into constant change, into constant rethinking of what they knew, how they show up, both individually and as an organization, as an enterprise, as this is, contribution to society. And so I think liminality is becoming something that we have are distinctly coming to appreciate the importance of, and our ability to navigate
Exactly, because
through
the
it.
world is in liminality. The world is in liminality between paradigms, right? We are shifting from like the Newtonian paradigm to quantum paradigm. Like we are in between. Like so many organizations are in liminality when old maps no longer apply, and the new like GPS is like like still it's difficult to navigate when the road is literally unfolding in front of your eyes, and you're pretty much like also building the road that you are driving. So this is where we're
I
at,
literally
right?
use the exact same words. This is the part that's so crazy, Eva. You and I didn't know each other a month ago, right? We're doing work in completely different continents in the world. We both have 3 children. We both, there's a lot of similarities about who we are as humans, which I think is really fascinating. But we have literally not studied in the same places. We've not worked together ever. And I literally am using
No.
similar, like almost the exact same words, right? I talk so much about the fact
Yeah.
that we do not have a map anymore. We need to be able to sense and respond in real time. We need to be able to build the capacity to be able to navigate unknown terrain by using a different set of capacities than a map that has been outdated and if anything, expired and now dangerous. And so building that ability to trust ourselves, right, and to trust the, I don't know, the environments or the world around us to hold us well as we're navigating through that, I think is a really, really critical thing. And I don't know that very many people are prepared for this. So your work becomes, again, very, very important. Do you think that you are more at this point a researcher or a coach or a tactician around like helping people actually practice this?
Um, Researcher with very much I both observe myself in liminality because I'm in liminality right now, and I have clients in liminality. So I work with individual lifestyle clients, but it's a lot of research now because as I feel very strongly that the world is ready. The world is ready to really elevate the discussion and the conversation about like the space in between. It's time for us to talk about not only like rites of passages, but actually like, this entire transition of human consciousness, like between paradigms. And I think that this is something that each organization would strongly benefit from because, like, I come from leadership and I come from management, and in order to make the change processes like sustainable and generative, um, we need to have new tools. We need to have not only new mindset, not only new attitude, but we have to develop and cultivate a whole new type of intelligence. And I believe that this is liminal intelligence that we are asked
I
and called to develop and talk about.
I love it. So I would like to dive into liminal intelligence in a minute, but can we back up 1 second? And
Mm-hmm.
again, this concept of Newtonian structures versus quantum structures is still relatively new to me, right? I've started talking about it in my work, and I've tried to give people examples of what it looks like to move from one to the other. But for those, again, who haven't been, introduced to this contrast between the two, right? I describe Newtonian as much more hierarchical, much more structured, based on these scientific paradigms of how things were supposed to work. It is more playbook oriented. Like, how would you describe the Newtonian world?
The Newtonian is very much built on separation. The Newtonian is very much built on separation, on silos, on hierarchies, right?
Right.
And it's very much used on power because, like, Newton very much believed that, like, he portrayed like universe as a quite cold place, cold, empty space with objects that we could, like the movement, we could predict and we could understand and
Right.
we could measure, and by using power we could like force things to move and affect and impact other objects. So everything was about using force in
Or at least
order
understanding
to,
force as the key,
yes,
right?
understanding and using
Yeah.
force. So that became like a very much inspiration for the past 300 years, like, for all aspects of our life, like that everything we thought that we could control the nature, control the nature, that we could dominate the nature because we could predict, we could measure, and we could command
Right. 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 Right.
how things, and we could impose our will on how we thought that life and the world and nature should
Well,
be.
and I think of
And
it
we were like,
potentially slightly differently, but just in the sense that it was designed to be able to try and coordinate action in a way that felt predictable, right? And that felt that one could understand how to where they fit into the pieces. Like I feel like it was a design theory about how we should navigate and coordinate to get to whatever level of output we were trying to get to, and it was very effective. It wasn't like it didn't work, right?
yeah, and but like because like Newton believed that like the nature is very simple. That nature doesn't like to complicate things, and nature
Uh,
is no dummy. So he liked to keep things simple, and we kind of like bought into this
right. And
beliefs.
that's how we've
So
led now to this world. We've got all these externalities that have shown up that no one has accounted for,
mm,
right? And no one considered in this very
mm,
myopic way of thinking about
exactly.
things. And now we realize that we're much more in interrelated systems, that these systems existed all the
Yes,
time. It's not like they're just suddenly popping up. But as we're putting more and
it
more,
was there all the time.
but
Yeah, and also the entire when it comes to business, like the Newtonian mindset was very much about like win and lose
right,
game, right?
right.
It was like in order for someone to win, survivors of the fittest, like someone needed to lose or
Well,
many
even an
needed to
interpretation of
lose,
survival
right?
of the
There were very
fittest that
few
was
winners.
designed to be
Yes,
competitive as opposed to be about
yes,
great fit,
e-
right? They even misinterpreted that quote
exactly,
or that idea. So,
exactly.
yeah, no, it was very much
So while the new science came, like they completely revolutionized the entire whole because like, all of a sudden they discovered that the universe like doesn't behave. It's not simple at all. It's highly complex and it's super unpredictable and it's full of like spooky actions
well,
and
and
illusions and like
highly
quantum leaps and
interrelated. I mean, that's the part to your point. It's not
exactly.
separated. It is highly entangled with
It's contextual, it's entangled, it's highly relational, like and interconnected
and constantly
and
in motion,
full of
constantly in
surprises
motion,
and full of
right?
surprises and full of contradictions. So yeah, so that
So that's quantum. So when we
that
start to talk about
completely.
quantum, right, it is about this
Mm,
understanding that around the turn of the 1900s, the 1930s, whatever, when you had a bunch of European and American men, often focused on this work, they were able to see at the subatomic level that particles moved very differently and behaved very, very differently in that way. And there was suddenly this challenge to our understanding what physics was and how we thought that systems worked. They, I think, from my understanding as I was reading more about it, were also trying to discredit. Like they saw this and couldn't believe that it was true. They kept, building more and more experiments or more and more ways to try and hope that they were wrong, that it wasn't true. And then it turned out that the evidence became more and more clear that there is this very different way in which nature
yes.
and systems operate. And this is what we're beginning to
Yes,
understand
and
as the quantum.
Newtonian way was very much about like that there's only one right way of doing things, while quantum people like very much prove that there's infinite ways
Right.
like of doing the same thing, and we can get there like in so many
Well, and the
ways,
term
and
potentiality,
they'll all be
you
good.
use the
Yeah.
word potential or potentiality, which I think is also a really interesting word because it means that the outcome is not fixed, right? There are
No,
many, many
no,
ways in the role of who we are. And this goes back to what you were talking about with the leaders
exactly.
and the way that they approach it, right? Energetically, the way that we show up determines or certainly has an impact on what becomes possible and what's not possible.
And the most important, because like one of the absolutely fundamental principle in quantum physics, as we know, is the observer effect, right? It's how we observe
Exactly.
that ultimately determines the outcome. So the energy, like to become aware of our agency, and realizing that we change things by looking at them,
Right? But and again, by
and
the consciousness
how
that we bring to it makes something visible or not visible, right? But that's like the part that I think
exactly,
is so fascinating is
exactly,
that we think we understand it, and then all of a sudden we realize that we don't really actually understand it, or if something becomes and increases our ability and our awareness. And I agree with you that we as a society or as a humanity are ready for this leveling up. I 100% agree with you that right now there's a big group of people that are trying to figure out how they can outsmart a robot or outsmart a machine and try and like have this like tug of war with the advances in technology. And I think there's a very, very different invitation sitting right there that we are on the threshold of that allows us to operate
yeah.
so differently with each other and within the nature of which we're all a part. So this work around quantum management and liminal intelligence. Let's now dive more into liminal intelligence and your evolving thinking around that.
Yes. Yes, and I would like to actually tell more like how I see it because it's like I said, it's not only a mindset, it's not only an attitude. Why I call it like intelligence because it's about our capacity. It's about our capacity to recognize that we are in liminality, because we cannot have a liminal experience if you don't know that you are in liminality. You have to know that you are on the threshold, and you have to know that the space that you're in is not empty. This is like the precondition of having a liminal experience that can result in a meaningful transformation. So first, like, criteria for this liminal intelligence is to really recognize that you are in liminality. And then it's sense the very subtle stimuli, from your external and internal environment. The next part is to stay with them, to linger.
That's, I think, the hard part. I think that's really, we always want to
And
cling
this is
to
the
the thing
most,
that gives us security again.
and this is the biggest challenge of this entire
Yeah.
approach. This is the biggest challenge that we have to both train and untrain to not collapse directly in premature solutions and quick answers
Based on old
in
paradigms.
the knowing.
Yeah. So
Exactly. So, in order to like recognize, sense, stay with, and then respond creatively to the emerging conditions.
okay, can we break those down then a little bit more? So how does one recognize that they're
Yeah.
in liminality, right? And what are the emotions that go with that?
And when there's a threshold, when the life as we know it ends.
But the examples you gave earlier
Uh,
on around the various rites of passage, those are imposed externally. We can anticipate them. We know that these things are going to happen. I think that where we're in right now is not as clear cut, right? It's not like we know that at some point my child is going to grow up and move to college or leave the home or in some way, change. Like I think what's happening now is so much more emergent and is so much less.
Absolutely. But we can also just to operate, like, to make it more tangible. Like, of course, like in organization, it can be like a change, right? Because like it's an order that ends. It's a order of that we are a familiar order that no longer applies for
Yeah, even
whatever
then, I think that's
reason. For
subtle.
example, like, okay, but for example, like the entire like appearance of AI, like, if you zoom out, right, this is a threshold. All of a sudden, we are exposed to a whole new space that we have no idea how to navigate, and it's discomfort, it's uncertainty. It's like we don't know the answers. we we try to accommodate it. We try to control it. We try to like some kind of like find like ascribe it a meaning,
Right.
right? But it's kind of this space is very dynamic, and it's emergent, and it's um I think that you yeah
But I also think that
it's
it's
very much
beyond,
like liminal.
yeah, I think, I mean, again, this would be the interesting thing. If I'm imagining us on a flight right now, Eva, having this like really
Yeah.
spirited conversation. So we're going to imagine that we're flying over somewhere in this liminal space of, the air, and saying that technology or an invention, an introduction to something like, even when we say AI, man, AI has been around for decades. It has come in different waves. It has come in different forms. It's this big, huge word for a bunch of different things that are happening. And so I don't think it was like all of a sudden it was there and all of a sudden it's, it wasn't there and all of a sudden it is there. It has been this thing that is continuing to
Yeah.
grow and emerge in our understanding of it.
It's been unfolding. It's been
Unfolding, yeah, and
unfolding.
continuing to advance in all these different ways. But I think it's also
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
our relationship to nature. It's our relationship and our responsibility to one another. Like these are things that I think we're becoming much more aware of. Now, you could argue partly it's a technology thing, but I almost sit there and say, again, we've got 8 billion people on the planet using resources on systems that were built for 1 to 2 billion people. And so there's this breakdown that continues to happen. So liminality also is in the showing up of the breakdown, right, of the way in which we thought we could continue doing something is no longer working.
Exactly. It's like one order dissolving, one structure dissolving, while the other ones, the new one, is still forming but not ready yet. It's like departing but not arriving, and just being poised in the space in between.
Okay, so let's talk about like
with all the
the place in
processes.
between where we want to rush to some sense of understanding or security or a sense again that we feel capable, like we feel competent in
Mm,
that unknown,
mm,
right? Which is why I think we end up going back to old behaviors, old paradigms, old structures, wanting to reclaim them. We see this certainly happening all over businesses right now that are trying to navigate change by trying to
yes.
lock down the way we used to do it, even in the return to office, tug of war, and all these other practices. So, how do you coach organizations or people to? Is it a very internal thing? Like, I just have to become very clear that I'm still worthy and I'm safe and well held. Is it that basic, or how do you help folks navigate?
It's very much like the starting point is like, how do you view the space? Like, do you perceive the space in between as empty and messy and full of chaos and uh,
Dangerous,
panicky? And like when you activate like fight or flight or freeze, like
right?
and survival mode, and try to like get it on the, and you try to arrive like as fast as possible, like to the next island of coherence and new order,
Yeah.
just to have something to grip on,
Yeah.
right? Or whether you have this new intelligence approach that, okay, we are in between, which means that we are in the most creative and most potent like space we can be. How do we engage? What do we do with it? How do we harness like all the collective intelligence that we represent as an organization, our individual intelligence, like in all of it? How do we get together? How do we sense and listen and linger to let things and let the space have its saying about what wants to emerge and what wants to be expressed through us and
Okay,
through
so we're
our
doing that now in
organization.
an environment of quarterly earnings reports where every analyst
Mm,
and
I know.
every system wants us to be very predictable, to not in any way really veer, but if anything, continue to grow at whatever predictable pace is. And, I've been on these earnings calls, and I'm sure you have too, right? Where analysts go in and look at these like the most
Yeah,
minutia of a number or something that they thought that there might
yeah,
like, represent some sort of shift that could somehow be, you know, a signal of an underpinning of something that could be going wrong or whatever it is. So I find leaders who, that even internally, if they would like to do this, are sitting inside structures
I know.
that are really hemming them
Yes.
in and make it very, very difficult for them to be able to embrace this. So how do we help navigate or help folks through this? There are some CEOs who've suspended quarterly earnings reporting because they just felt like that was a thing
Yeah.
that was really hampering their ability to be able to be more responsive and emergent to the changing conditions around them. But very few are willing to do that in this moment in time.
Once again, it's you cannot change the structure, um, especially when the structure is like fixed, right? But um,
Or it's much more difficult. Like it's going to take some time to change that. That structure is going to break at some point when we
exactly.
realize it's no longer holding us well. But that
Yes,
breakdown hasn't
but
happened
on the
yet.
individual, no, no, because like things will take time, and of course, if you create a new company from scratch, you can like you can have a different approach, and you can create like new rules that can be much more liminal, and it can actually integrate like like more space for becoming like already from the start. When you are in the fixed structure already with quarter reports and all the limitations, like if you're a listed company or if you're like very siloed company, it's difficult, but we still have a power on the individual level to hold our perspective in our head, right? And once again, it's how we observe. It's how we observe, and even on the big structural level, it's difficult to do something about it if you don't have authority. But on the individual level, you can always choose to create the space between questions, between rushing to the premature resolution, between coming, like, like while creating a strategy, you can at least like hold this perspective, because like liminal intelligence is also about like being able to hold paradox, the whole paradox that is about holding the space between multiple
Right.
truths and multiple
Right.
contexts and multiple polarities. to be poised in between all those things, right? And knowing that like the longer I linger, the longer I'm in this space, like steady, knowing that there are other forces that only my head, like organizing this space. It's not only up to me, and just allow it to happen by lingering and staying with it, the discomfort, the more it actually happens. So like to refrain from like collapsing too early,
Right.
like into like decision, answer, solution, like fragmentation, like sample it, just to have something. If you are in position to hold the space slightly longer
Yeah, I think the key
than
is in the
other
position to
people.
hold the space. I think is an interesting thing, right? I think there's
Yeah.
a certain privilege that comes with that. But I just, when you're just describing this, I'm thinking about my summer. I have spent the
Mm.
last 6 weeks or so in California, not in like hyper productive mode, not getting on a plane every week or even every 2 days, like really being in this different space, really trying to figure out where I want my future now, literally physically where I want to live with my partner. Now that my children are all out of school, all grown, like to your point, there's a threshold that has happened, right? There's a change that has happened.
Yeah.
And I felt so much more anxious at the beginning of summer, feeling I had to have the answer, the answer, the answer, the answer. And I couldn't figure it out. And all these variables were going round and around and around. And every day I would wake up trying to figure out, what the various options / paths should be. And somehow it did finally relax into it. And now it's becoming more and more clear as, you do sit with it for a bit and let other things start to either develop or I can see things, whatever it is. There's something that has shifted, and the calm around this feels really different now 6 weeks later, which I wish I'd told myself 6 weeks prior to just relax. It's all going to get clear, right? But the
Because the
anxiety,
liminal space is about
right?
questions. It's like refining our questions and staying with them instead of like looking for answers and looking for solutions. I think that the biggest challenge is to abandon the identity that we are mostly rewarded for having and being, is like the identity of the knower,
Right,
right?
right,
Because like we always have to know. If we don't know, that we have no value. Like to come with the solutions and to come with this, like we are trained in school already, like to always have the answer, and to always, if you come with a problem, come with a solution, or at least like three.
right, right, right. That's true.
but but the exactly, but I think that like what really comes with this new, like at least like what I would like to see more of, because this is my highly like suggested, this is how I observe, like, the process is going on. If we had the courage to abandon like the identity of the knower for at least like 5 minutes a day, even in the most rigid
Right.
structures, you know, and just sit there with not knowing and practice the
Is that where
trust.
meditation has become such the important ingredient in this? Because I will say I'm not a really great meditator either.
No, no one is, because like I find it super difficult,
Oh, good.
because like
Okay.
when I'm posed, like, when I'm poised between like so many like complex contexts at the same time, like sitting and meditating and getting out of my head is the last thing, I find it like even more stressful, because it's like I should be meditating. No, sometimes it's just like pausing the response, like
Got it.
in instead of like immediately answer an email, just like just stay with the question,
That's
just like
awesome. Yes.
like create a space
Grace.
for maybe better solution to emerge, invite some like life forces to maybe like organize and orchestrate things with you, for you. It's not everything is up to us, and not everything is up to us to always figure out. Like if like I've learned so many times, and just as you, like every time that I really engage life
Yeah.
to 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 plan my life, to arrange my life, or to solve a problem that's like seemingly unsolvable, it always gets like beyond logic much better.
Well, I definitely think that there's so many things that come out. Being part of it is just like calming down from it. You can see things that you may not have been able to see when you were in this rush to go do it, or you felt this pressure to go do it. And then I think to your point that there are these constellations that are shifting and changing around us. And we talk to, I spend a lot of time with young people people who are either in college or are entering the world of work, and who feel like there's so much shift and change. I'm going to feel this pressure to do and to create and to be and to have an answer, right? I think that the invitation that you have about this liminal space and the liminal intelligence would be very inviting for them to
Yes,
embrace.
because they are in liminality. They are in limin, like leaving, like becoming an adult, becoming a part of like, working society, like being in the beginning of your career. It's like such uncharted
Well, even the
territory, right?
concept of a
Because they feel
career,
that they
I
have
think that
more.
we don't even know that the concept of a career is
Yes,
going to continue to exist quite that way, right?
exactly. Even the concept. So they're just like, but this intelligence really about like refining our questions and asking without and suspending our urge to like figure it out by ourselves.
I think that's,
And
I can see the,
this is the good start that we can practice like pretty much like ever, because we are trained to always deliver, and the speed of our response has been always like
yeah,
it has been like some kind of like uh, determine like our worth and our intelligence. How
yeah,
smart
yeah,
are
yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah,
Like how,
yeah.
how
No,
smart can you
totally.
how fast can you answer the question that like what a teacher or your boss asks you, or even your
Well,
parents. But I think that like to really allow and to give people permission, and like in your team or in your closest environment, to not know for a while, like to not know for a while. Just I'll let me get back to you on that like tomorrow,
right.
or like even before I go home, or before like whatever, just to make it legit and to honor it.
So how's that going to happen in the
Like
world of
let
like
me.
having literally an AI assistant around us all the time, right? We're moving so quickly into this idea that we're going to
Mm,
have this constant,
mm,
intelligent quote unquote partner that can immediately answer any question that we have or curiosity
mm.
that we have. Does that increase our ability to live in the unknown, or does that harden our desire to want to have quick answers that are concrete? Like in some ways, I could see it go both ways. I think the thing that's been really interesting about this whole conversation we have right now about people having almost an overdependence or parasocial relationship with ChatGPT is that they keep
Mm.
wanting to ask more and more and more, right? They keep wanting to have a more expansive conversation and really dig into
Yes.
the potential of things, which I find actually to be a really cool thing. Like I think that that's a very progressive thing. They're not just trying to get to the final answer. Sometimes they are. I mean, I'm sure they're trying to get to sometimes just the most
Mm.
expedient answer. But I do think you're seeing a lot more conversation happening inside these systems that are more exploratory. Is that the right word?
Absolutely, but I think that there's like um, something that we cannot outsource to AI, and it's our intention. It's our intention where we want to like take the
Right.
process. Like if we are in transition, like we can have an intention of like what we want to do with this in between us, what we want to do with our existence and our I amness. so so like how do you want to manage this space? And if we use AI in order to become more of who we are, if we are inquisitive, like we probably use AI to become even more inquisitive, right?
Right.
If we are curious, if we are like really working on defining like questions and giving them like more quality
Yeah.
and making them more complex and more advanced and sophisticated, will probably our intention will be probably to use AI to do just that, right? To help me be more creative. Have I missed something? Like, is there
Right.
another angle? Is there another perspective? Is there like, can I be more? Can I become more with my questions, or with this, like what I'm sitting with? But I also see that like, people who like don't have
Yeah. Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
the quality of the prompts will always reflect the
Right.
intention.
Of course. Right. 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 So
So even there, we can be very intelligent, liminally intelligent, and use this for our own becoming, and for like the process of co-creation, even with AI as well. Just as we co-create with life intelligence, right? And life organizing and orchestrating forces, we can probably use exactly the same with AI as just another tool, as another partner to invite to the like creative dance of
well, and the
things.
there are a few women that I know, and I'll say specifically women that have been part of our Femme Futurist society, really do embrace that dance of co-creation with something like, particularly with AI, and feel it as a much more emergent. One of my friends really believes that there's a consciousness coming from the edge of the universe and is going to speak through us, through AI, in this dance of potentiality. So it's a really interesting thing because it's also just, I think, your experience. I don't know. Again, the words always seem to feel like they're failing you. If it's your experience or your mindset or your belief system or your, a way that you approach it, or to your point, the intentionality with which it is that you believe this thing can be a partner in your thinking. I think is a really interesting. I mean, again, we're so early days on this, Eva. We're just beginning to, first feel it, experience it, put some vocabulary and some shared understanding around it. So in the time we have left, I think there's two directions. You can decide which way you want to go. One is the third phase of this, when you talk about like hitting, getting to the next, the sort of post-liminal phase. My belief is right now it's not going to look very concrete. It's going to look more and more fluid. So it's not so much that we're leaving this like, very solid thing going into the liminal space and then going to go to the next mountain or to the next island or to the next thing that is solid. It's going
Order.
order, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
something that is going to, the for me, the transformative shift from the Newtonian into the quantum is that it will be an embrace of fluidity and emergence and constant creation and really being in a very different kind of dance. Like you think about again, from a very hierarchical structure to the murmuration of birds, or the self-organization of the way other systems in nature work. Like that's the big paradigm shift. And then when we talk about transformation, that to me is the big transformation, is how we start to build confidence in our capacity to be part of a much more fluid experience within in life.
And maybe that's a new order, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Is that funny to think of that as an order, but it is a way of
Uh,
being. It is a way of
but yeah,
coordinating.
exactly, because like the order is like, our cognitive construct. This is how we see it, because we want to see like islands, like, right, of safety, that we can like,
Right.
that we can take ourselves like from A to B, and like from like as a linear journey, right, from evolution. But maybe it's not about that anymore. And
Totally.
what I love about the quantum paradigm and the quantum mindset and philosophy is very much that the game is like about win-win,
Yes.
right?
Mutuality. Yeah.
It's an infinite game. Like Newtonian world was very much about like finding games. Like someone has to win in order
Yeah.
not to, like, someone
Totally.
who's like game over, right? Like in quantum, you just keep the game going and you play in order to keep the flame burning, to keep the like game going, and to keep the consciousness to evolve, and to like, to be more attuned and aligned with the bigger movements,
Right.
right? The cosmic movements that are there. So maybe that's why, and it's about legacy, right? Like and it's about, once again, like intention. Like how do we use AI so our children can take over and their children can
Right.
continue?
Yeah. So there's an
So
interesting
we
in
all
my
like
world.
keep
So
the game
part of
alive.
also, in addition to all the AI stuff and the tech stuff and the business world, I'm also part of a community in Costa Rica of women that are building something quite sacred there. And there's this term that I've been spending a lot of time in remembering. So it's like in parentheses, remembering, this idea that we're remembering and remembering how connected we are and interconnected we are. So in some ways, a lot of what we're talking about is not just even going forward into these whole new paradigms or whole new ways of thinking. In some ways, it's going full circle back to the way, again, nature has already been built, indigenous systems have been built, a feminine wisdom that has been, present forever, that has been subjugated in the Newtonian world. So I think that there's also something very inviting about the fact that it isn't that we're heading into a complete unknown. I really do think that there is literally a reconnecting, remembering that is part of this
Exactly.
invitation.
I don't. I don't think it's like completely like the circumstances that we live are like, so different to like what it used to be, obviously, but the essence that what I believe, that we're essentially very well equipped to meet the emergence, because it wouldn't be happening if we weren't
Oh, that's a nice way of
meeting
thinking about it. I like that.
to meet there. It wouldn't be on our table.
Love that.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
it would
yeah.
be happening. It would be happening somewhere else. So what I believe that we have this built-in capacity in us that has always been
I agree
there.
with that.
So it's about remembering. It's about um, like tuning into it when that. But the circumstances are so new that we've never, ever had to
Exactly.
navigate and really like and be in this space before. And it's much more complex. It's much more um, like the capacity to hold paradoxes. I don't think that like anybody
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
before
No, I agree with
like
that.
in the history of humanity needed to hold paradox, like and the tension between the fixedness and unfixedness, like just so much as we have to do. But I was also thinking because like if the future is female, right, and it's about like female like tapping into our like female aspects, both men
Or
and women,
feminine. Yeah.
obviously,
Yep.
the feminine, and it's about receiving, right, our ability to receive, to
Yeah.
nurture,
Yes.
to carry, to care, and to look tenderly at, right. Then my question is collectively, like what do we want to what are we receiving, what are we
But
receiving right now, what are we nurturing right now, what are we holding in our like space in our systems right now, because I believe that the liminal space holds us, and if we hold it back,
I just want to take a
that
pause for a moment and just take a really deep breath and like think about that, or just and not even think, but just like hold that for a moment. What an amazing uh, reflection, right? And a moment for us to really embrace in that. I think that that is a really, really profound thought, Eva. So I think that as we close this conversation, we've only got a few minutes left. I think that, having had this whole exploration and flying across this whole thing, like, is there a thought or an invitation or a practice that you would leave us with that lets us really not so much understand the concept of liminality and liminal intelligence, but embody it in some way? Like, where do you think there's a real limitation
yes,
for some people to?
yes, I think that next time, tomorrow, or this like whatever you find yourself looping in your thoughts and your emotions and in the problems and about the polycrisis that we are facing and we are in, and you don't have time to meditate, you don't have time to go somewhere to get out of your head, I would love to assure you that there's a space inside your head that holds your thoughts, that holds your emotions, that holds your questions. And if you shift your focus from the thoughts, from the words, from the problems, and from the questions, and just shift your attention and just linger there in your head, in between everything that's going on there, you'll see how your body relaxes. And this space has the answers. This space has the creative solutions. This space remembers. And this space will take you where you need to be, not where you think that you want to be. This space will take you where you need to be in order to be calm.
Aho, as my friends would say. And so it should be. I like what an amazing invitation, right? And I will just add to it the thing that you just said that I think gave me shivers when you said, what are we ready to receive,
Yeah.
right? And to let that space, let that become more and more visible. I think it's a really profound thought, because I think that we
Like
don't believe that it's
there
there to
to,
give to us. And I think it is. I think it's constantly there.
yeah, stay with our intention to receive.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I think that that is a really, really profound thought. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Well, now I do want to book a flight with you and like go fly from, place to place to place and have these conversations with other people. Because I think following your
Weekend departure and just
right,
keep on
yeah,
flying like
well,
without arriving. We can
that's
just
true.
like, hold the space of not arriving.
Right, totally. And a very, sustainable
Yeah.
plane that doesn't in any way have impact on the planet.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
but no, I do think following your work will be really, really interesting because I know that you are still in it, right? All of this, I mean, not just we're always going to be in it, but it continues to evolve and
Yeah.
it continues to
Yeah.
um, deepen in your thinking and the way that you share it with others. So I'm really excited that we found each other and that we get to continue to stay in each other's worlds
Yes.
as you again deepen and now generously share. I think so much of what you're thinking and doing in these ways that you're putting it out there for all of us to have some more access to and be able to discuss with you. I also am very focused on the next generation of young people that we are privileged to be parents to, or aunties, or mentors, or others. And knowing that you are also raising a family with this way of thinking makes me also feel really, really good. It's already amplified inside your household and in your world. So thank you for helping us
Yes.
ensure
Yes.
not just a safer and healthier world, but with people who feel prepared to be in it and can be extraordinary. I don't want to say leaders, but examples of how to hold this for their peers.
Exactly. Thank you so much because I very much believe that we are so ready. And I really want to declare our readiness as a representative of like, of our human family, that we are ready to become more, right?
Right.
To become more and to
To recognize our more.
um,
I think that, yeah, to really to recognize our more. I think there's an extraordinary intelligence
yes,
and consciousness and ability to be able to navigate and to show up in an extraordinary not just I don't even my vocabulary just continues to fail me in this whole thing, but in this way of being that I think is really profound, extraordinary, generous, and to your point, very creative, and will allow us to build the future that we want for ourselves and for everyone in it. I think we are on a threshold, and I think that threshold is
and what
extraordinary.
future wants for us. And what future wants for us, because I very much believe that if we could see the future's face, we would probably discover that, like, she is looking at us very tenderly and goes like, "Come on, you can do it, guys."
I love it. I love it. Eva Pasternak, thank you so much again for spending an hour with us, deepening our understanding and our thinking and
Yeah.
exploration around all this. Is what makes the Femme Future Society, such a really, really rich place, and why we continue to spend time in these conversations. And we will, to be continued, my friend. We are now, we are now entangled,
It's
Missy, and so
yes, and we are only warming up. We are only
exactly,
warming up
exactly.
through time and space.
Totally. Oh my God, I'm so grateful to know you.
There's more to come.
Thank you. Thanks again for all
Thank you so much.
all the energy and passion and love that you pour into this.